Do da do da do da day. Hello guys and gals, Buffalo here. Welcome back to the range. So we've got two internal hammer double action only revolvers, both chambered for 8 rounds of .22 long rifle ammunition and both competing for the exact same market share. One is the Smith and Wesson 43C and one is the Ruger LCR 22. Since most people trying to decide between these two are going to choose one or the other, not both, although both is sometimes the correct answer when we're talking about firearms. But anyway, I thought I'd show these side by side, discuss their differences, give you guys my opinion on the features that I like on one more than the other, and ultimately which one I would choose if I could only have one of these. The 43C has an aluminum alloy frame and outer barrel. It does have a 1 7/8 inch stainless steel inner barrel, but the key feature on the 43C is that it has an aluminum alloy cylinder. This is what allows it to be so ridiculously light. And I'll put it on the scale here in just a bit, but let's just say there's a reason it says air light on the side plate. It does have a steel ejector rod and extractor. They've basically used aluminum where they could and harder, heavier parts where they had to. The LCR has an aluminum alloy frame that includes the outer barrel. It has a 1 7/8 inch inner stainless steel barrel and a stainless steel cylinder. The key feature on the LCR is the polymer fire control housing. It includes the trigger guard and the grip peg, and if you can see this line right here that goes all the way up to the rear sight, that's where the polymer fire control housing mates up with the aluminum frame. Having such a large portion of the revolver made of polymer really helps reduce the weight, which is key to the name LCR, or lightweight compact revolver. So both of these revolvers are designed to be lightweight revolvers. I've got my postal scale out here. Let's see what they weigh. I'll start with the 43C. It comes in at 11.4 ounces. That's ridiculously light for an 8-shot double action revolver. Now for the LCR, or lightweight compact revolver. And it's coming in at 14.5 ounces. That's still a very lightweight revolver. An all-steel revolver of this size might come in at over 20 ounces. So both these revolvers are very light, but the 43C definitely comes in lighter than the LCR. Having done full-length reviews on both of these revolvers in the past and reading the comments that I've gotten on those reviews, I can say that there's a good number of viewers who do not like the idea of an aluminum cylinder, even on a .22 long rifle chambered revolver. It's just something that worries them. The comments on the LCR video were more along the lines of how the revolver looks. A lot of people, for some reason, just think it's ugly. Their words, not mine. And I also got a few comments about the polymer fire control housing, stating that polymer does not belong in revolvers. Now, I've had extensive range time with both these little revolvers, and I haven't had any issues with the aluminum cylinder of the 43C or the polymer fire control housing of the LCR for that matter. As a side note, I once fired 300 rounds through this little revolver just as fast as I could load it and get it pointed down range, just because someone told me that aluminum cylinder would lock up if I ever got the gun heated up. That didn't happen in this case. And I'm not the kind of person that cares a whole lot about the looks of a concealed carry piece, but if I were judging these two in a beauty contest, I'd give the win to the 43C. I know that's a subjective thing to say, and I'll probably get a lot of comments telling me the LCR looks better this time. And I don't by any means think that the LCR is ugly. I just prefer the yoke design and the standard fluting on the 43C versus that narrow crane and deep fluting of the cylinder on the LCR. Let's take a look at the factory sights on these revolvers. The Smith and Wesson has an XS big dot pinned in place up front and a fixed U-notch in the rear. The LCR has a ramped front sight pinned in place, has a white stripe on it from the factory, and a fixed square notch in the rear. Now, I much prefer the sights on the Ruger. I know a lot of people love the XS big dots, and I did when I first got this revolver. I thought, man, I really like these sights. And they're plenty sufficient, don't get me wrong. But I just shoot this style of sight so much better on distant or small targets, especially. I just shoot it so much better. At 45 yards on a 10-inch steel target, I can put most of my shots on that target with this revolver, with these sights. I can only put about a quarter of my shots on that same target with these sights. Now, these aren't target revolvers. I understand that. Somebody's probably typing in the comments right now telling me, those aren't target revolvers. They're not meant for shooting long range. I get that. But the thing is, the XS Big Dot doesn't really help me at close range either. So there's no real advantage to it. I don't feel any more confident getting this sight on target at close range than I do this one. If it had that advantage for me, you know, I would definitely be more happy with the XS Big Dot, but it doesn't. This style of sight, for me personally, is what I like. And hey, if you like the Big Dot better, do what works for you. But I found that I have to slow down a little bit to get my hits on target with the Big Dot sight. Let's take a look at the factory supplied grips on these little revolvers. The Smith and Wesson uses a synthetic rubber grip. You can see the back strap is not covered by the grip. It's a two-piece grip, meaning there's a left and a right. You can see the seam here. 2 finger grooves. Very comfortable little grip. The LCR uses the Hogue Tamer grip, which is a one-piece grip. It's a mono grip. The 2 finger grooves are much more pronounced on the Hogue Tamer. And the Hogue Tamer is just a larger, thicker grip than the one on the Smith and Wesson. It's also much softer. It's very soft in this area right here. And that's to protect your hands from heavier recoiling cartridges. But since today we're looking at 2 revolvers chambered in .22 long rifle, I feel like I prefer the Smith and Wesson grip. It's just a little thinner, feels a little better in my hand and in my pocket. And I realize I'm inserting a lot of opinion into this video. Here's the thing. In my past comparison videos, you guys have asked in the comments for me to give my opinions on what I like better. I'm not trying to persuade any of you one way or the other. In fact, I enjoy reading your opinions in the comments section, so don't be shy about disagreeing with me. You might even change my mind, who knows? These revolvers are very similar in size. The 43C is a little smaller in overall height and length, being 4.3 inches tall and 6 1/4 inches long, compared to the LCR being 4.5 inches tall and 6.5 inches long. The only outside dimension where the 43C comes in with a slightly larger number is overall width. The widest points of these revolvers are their cylinders. The 43C is 1.3 inches wide, while the LCR is 1.28 inches wide. So very close. Real world feel, the LCR just feels a little larger in my hand and in my pocket. And that's due to that larger grip we already discussed, and it has a larger trigger guard than the 43C. Now the internal dimensions of the trigger guard isn't that much different than the 43C, but it is a little larger, and it could make a difference if you shoot a lot with gloves on. I've got both revolvers loaded up with snap caps, so we are clear. And the reason I've got them loaded up with snap caps is we're going to talk about the triggers and the action feel on these revolvers. I recently posted a video where I compared a Ruger LCR X in .22 long rifle to a Smith and Wesson 317 kit gun. And both of those revolvers had single action capabilities, meaning that you could cock the hammer and fire them in single action mode. And the Smith and Wesson had a much better single action trigger than the LCRX. Of course, today we're talking double action. These are double action only. It's going to be harder to choose between these. These actually both, the triggers feel better on both of these than they did on either one of those guns in the previous video as far as their double action modes. So let's take a look here and get us a pull weight. And pull weight's just something that you guys can see. You know, I wish you could feel these triggers. Pull weight's just one factor, and it's something that I can show you guys. I'm always careful not to touch the cylinder when I'm doing a double action pull, trigger pull weight. So 12.4 pounds on the LCR. Zero this thing out. Get a pull on the 43C. 11.1 pounds on the 43C. So a little lighter pull on the Smith and Wesson, but feel wise, real world feel, there's just not, I mean, it's difficult to choose which one. They feel different from each other for sure. The LCR is supposed to have that friction reducing cam that results in a smooth non-stacking pull, they say. And this trigger is, on the double action only model, much better than the double action pull on my LCRX models. I think I like the Ruger better. Man, it's close though. Talk about splitting hairs. I'm gonna go with the Ruger. I think it just feels slightly better than the 43C, but man, it's close. One thing I will say about the Ruger is they are rattle traps. Some people don't like that. I don't know how well my mic's picking that up, but they are fairly rattly. Whereas the Smith and Wesson, no rattle at all. As far as reliability goes, it's been a wash. I haven't had any issues with either one of these revolvers whatsoever. I will say this, if you choose to carry a 22 long rifle for self-defense, carry a good high quality ammunition. Modern premium 22 long rifle ammunition is pretty darn reliable. And you'll greatly reduce the chances of running into a misfire over this kind of stuff. Save this stuff for the range. Both of these are great little revolvers. The truth is, you can't really go wrong with either one of these if you need or just want a little double action only 22 revolver. I can't talk too much about pricing in this video because the algorithm will think that I'm trying to facilitate a sale, as crazy as that sounds. So I have to word my words carefully. I will say that brand new, the LCR is usually less expensive than the 43C by about $100 in a lot of cases. So that might be the deciding factor between these two for a lot of you guys. But what about me? What if I could only choose one of these? Well, I did choose one of these. I only own one of these. This LCR is on loan for a friend of mine and channel supporter, Jason. Man, I appreciate you for sending this over and letting me keep it for so long so I could get to know it and make some videos with it. So I chose the 43C. And about all the thought that I put into it when I was in the market for one of these was that they both do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and get the lighter one. So that's all the thought that I put into it. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out by reminding you guys that if anybody asks you to give up a little of your freedom for the greater good, remind them that freedom is the greater good. And I'll talk with y'all again soon.